It's 8 p.m. in the East, 7 p.m. here in Des Moines, Iowa. I'm Brett Baer.
And I'm Megan Kelly. Good evening. The process of choosing the next president has finally begun.
Early Fox News entrance polls indicate a tight race on the Republican side, with New York businessman Donald Trump, Texas Senator Ted Cruz, and Florida Senator Marco Rubio battling each other for the top spot. Although Trump appears to have a very slight edge, it is still very early, and the numbers could, of course, shift.
On the Democratic side, there is a similarly tight battle between former Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton and Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, a Democratic socialist. Again, it is very early. About the only projection we can safely make at this early hour is one that will come as no surprise to anyone who's been paying even remote attention to pre-Iowa polling, and that is that Fox News can now project that former Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley, brace yourself, will finish third in the Democratic contest, far behind frontrunners Clinton and Sanders. The news is coming in as coverage of the Iowa caucuses starts right now.
They've made their case. Now Iowa gets its say.
We're going to make our country great again. You have to go out. You have to caucus.
Commit to come out Monday night to stand and caucus for us. If we stand together united, we will win.
You have to have somebody who is a proven fighter.
That inevitable candidate ain't so inevitable today.
Tonight, across the state, Iowans are starting to caucus, casting the first votes of 2016.
I will win this election. I will unite the Republican Party.
As President of the United States, no one will keep this country safer than I will.
Restoring America's leadership in the world, I think, is essential.
For some candidates, it could be their last stand.
I think it's time, as citizens, we take our future back.
America's looking for a new leader.
We've got to rally the base. We've got to all be enthused about the nominee.
I know you want a fighter. I want a fighter. I am a fighter.
One of the things I have to do is to stay on my feet, run full throttle.
We are in a situation right now in our country that we have never been in before. We need people who think out of the box.
Look, we're the little engine that can.
But as this campaign has proven, anything can happen.
I never thought in a million years I'd be a politician.
We have a movement on it, I'll tell you.
Our coverage of the Iowa caucuses starts now.
Live from Des Moines, this is America's election headquarters, the Iowa caucuses.
You are looking live at the historic state capitol in Des Moines, Iowa. After months of campaigning and more than $70 million in ads, caucus night has arrived.
The doors have closed at 2,000 sites, and voters are beginning to make a final pitch for their candidates across 99 different counties in the Hawkeye State. Let's check in now on what the voters are saying as they arrive to caucus. Martha McCallum has our entrance polls. Martha?
Hi there. Good evening, Megan and Brett. So since Iowa's a caucus, these are entrance polls, as we've been telling you. We ask the questions as they go into the caucus. We're at 40 sites at each party across the state. This is how they intend to vote. So what we're showing you now is very early. We may see some big changes, but here we go. Let's start with the Democrats. Bringing in more participants, often a goal of the new candidates especially. This year we're seeing a smaller percentage of first-time caucus goers, at least on the Dem side. In 2008, when Barack Obama took Iowa, 57% said that they had never caucused before. Today we are seeing about 41% newcomers. The newbies so far appear to be going for Sanders, 59% versus 38% for Hillary Clinton. Now, people who say that electability is the single most important thing for them, they are going, unsurprisingly, for Hillary Clinton, 71 to 18% over Sanders. Democrats who want a nominee who is honest and trustworthy, they are backing Sanders by a wide margin, 77 to 14. Given all of the news that we have had in recent weeks about Hillary Clinton, not a huge surprise, and her honest and trustworthy numbers have been troubled throughout the course of this campaign so far. Now let's go over to the Republican side, where we're getting later information here. So just a very small number of the earliest have arrived so far, so this information is preliminary. I just want to stress that. Evangelical Christians, a key voting group, so far they are making up 62% of caucus goers. That's up a little bit. 56% were evangelical caucus goers back in 2012. 2012. They went heavily for the eventual winner that night, Rick Santorum. So another group everybody's watching closely, the first-time caucus goers on the GOP side. Early numbers show that 43% say this is the first time that they have attended. That is higher than 2012 when there were 38%. We'll see who that bodes well for, but the early suggestion is that could be good news for Donald Trump tonight. The late deciders, those who made up their mind either today or over the weekend, were 46% of the participants last time around. So far tonight, we're only seeing 34%, about 1/3 made up their minds in the last few days, but many of those folks may be coming in a little bit later in the evening because we're just looking at the beginning numbers, especially on the GOP side. So the evangelical vote obviously is a big part of this evening. And we know that those voters are a group that Ted Cruz really wants. The first-timers, are they turning out for Trump? All these questions we'll be able to nail down with more specificity as we get a little bit further into this hour. Brett and Megan, back to you.
Martha, thanks.
Joining us now, Britt Hume, Fox News senior political analyst and the esteemed distinguished voice of our Open, Democratic strategist Kirsten Powers, and Steve Hayes, senior writer at the Weekly Standard, both Fox News contributors. Britt, thoughts going in? You just listened to some of those entrance polls. Obviously, these are not exit polls. They're people who could change their mind as they go into the caucuses.
Thank God people are now voting. After all this time and all this money and all this interest, if I may say so, we finally are going to get some real results. And by the time this night is over, we'll have some idea of who can make it on and carry forward and who will not be able to. Iowa will, it seems to me, is likely to play its traditional role in winning the field. And thank God.
Kirsten, what are you looking at right now for the first hour?
Well, I mean, this is still early, so we don't know how accurate these numbers are going to be, but that 62% number of evangelicals is really jumped out at me because in the Des Moines Register poll, they had a much lower number for evangelicals. They were expecting, I think, around 47%. Last time it was about 57%. What they had said in the poll is higher numbers means better for Cruz. They do tend to split the evangelicals, but the bigger the evangelical vote is, they said, means a good night for Cruz.
Steve?
Well, there are reports all across the state that turnout is astonishing, high, virtually everywhere. Mike Warren, my colleague at the Weekly Standard, is in Ames, said that it's up 40%, something like that, at the precinct that he's attending. You're hearing similar reports. That obviously, at least going in, the assumption is that bodes well for Donald Trump, who was thought to bring in a number of new caucus goers. We'll see as soon as we get more of the entrance polls whether that actually ends up being true. But on the surface, it looks like that might be a good sign for Trump.
And Sanders, too.
And Sanders too. There's a line that looks like it's a city block long in Des Moines here for Democrats looking to go caucus, and that is too up way higher than 2012.
Those entrance polls, Britt, with the honest and trustworthy number on the Democratic side, that's a big deal in this race.
It is a big deal in this race, and people, surprising number of Democrats in national polls have said that this is a very important issue for them, and of course that cuts hard against Hillary Clinton. His reputation on that score has suffered, and we've seen it throughout the polling all year long. So it'll be interesting to see if that plays out in the way that we expect.
I love the way Martha phrased it, which is to those voters to whom honesty and trustworthy is important. They seem to be siding with Sanders. Like, who says no? I don't care about that.
But people will say no. Yeah, what's interesting is people will say no. It won't be a top priority for a number of years.
Yeah, because if
that were the case, I mean, 70%, was it 71% for Sanders, I think, if I saw it correctly? I mean, this would be a blowout if that were really the top issue for everybody across the board.
Talk about, so if these first-time caucus goers are showing up, and we're presuming that if it's on the Republican side, that's a good thing for Trump, and on the Democratic side, it's a good thing for Sanders. This is where the loyalty of the Trump voters will really help him, right? Because if they get in there and, you know, this is the last-ditch effort, they're dug in. These Trump voters are not ready to, they're not likely to be persuaded. Or am I wrong? Because a lot of them do have a second choice that's viable.
And I think about them is that people might have hoped that they would be, because they're first-time caucus goers and so on, they might not be motivated to come out tonight. I've never thought that for a second. These Trump voters, I think, are highly motivated. And my sense is that you get a big turnout, that means that's big for him. No question about it. And I don't think there's any chance that these people are going to stay away from the polls. They're dying to vote for this guy.
Quickly, I mean, you have Martin O'Malley, no shocker, coming in third, and we announced that. But it's important in the Democratic caucus that his people who don't qualify, who don't get to that level, could go someplace someplace else. Do they go to Sanders?
Well, they were, I think in the polls, they were evenly splitting between Hillary and Sanders, but then you have the dynamic that people start making their case. And so the feeling was that Hillary Clinton has a better organization, so she'd be able to pull those people. But look, people are going to want to go with who they feel the winner is. They're going to feel the enthusiasm. And so if there's a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of people that are supporting him, they could definitely pull them over to Sanders' side.
Can you just explain that to the viewers what we're talking about? Because the Democratic side works differently than the Republican side, and there's a dust-up over what's going to happen to O'Malley's voters.
Right. So basically people come in and they stand next to, the Hillary people go stand over here, and the Sanders people go stand over here, and the O'Malley people go stand over here. And then if he doesn't meet the threshold, those voters have to go somewhere else, 15%.
They either have to go home or they have to choose another team.
Right. And so then what you'll have is the surrogates for each of the campaigns making their case.